Create a phone number code wars challenge. Let's get started. Write a function that accepts an array of 10 integers between 0 and 9 and it returns a string of those numbers in the form of a phone number. This phone number format is very explicit. We have a bracket followed by the first 3 and then a close bracket, a space, the next 3 numbers, takeaway sign and then the last 4 numbers. So let's get started. We can press the train button and make sure we got C# or your preferred language selected. So let's first have a look at the test cases and you'll see we have 2 there and they both contain the exact same format. So we have multiple ways of being able to do this and let's explore them one by one. So first of all, we can do a very straightforward manually typed method. We have 3 distinct sections, 1, 2 and 3. So let's start it like this. We can have a string first and make that equal to some string interpolation. And then inside here, we could say numbers, square bracket 0, which gives us the first one. And if we copy that and paste it in twice more times, change this to 1 and change this to 2. So this one should contain the 1, 2 and 3 in this example. And let's have a string second and let's do exactly the same approach. Let's paste that in and then we've got 3, 4 and 5. And that should have 4, 5 and 6 and then string third equals string interpolation and then we can say 6, 7 and finally 8. As well as 9 since the last one has an additional character and that's going to be 7, 8, 9 and 0. So now we've got all 3 there, we can actually just join them back together. We can say return, more string interpolation, and we can say open brackets, and within them open brackets we're going to have the first variable followed by a space and then the second variable followed by a takeaway sign and finally then the third variable. So let's run that and see what happens and press test bottom right. You can see that the tests have indeed passed. So let's have a look at some methods how we can make this a little bit better. So we've taken the first 3, the second 3, and then the last 4 numbers. So maybe we can try and make this into a for loop. So if you add these as blank variables and just comment out the rest, and then what we can do inside a for loop, we can say for int I equals 0, and we're going through the list of numbers. So we can say numbers.length, and then we go I++ since we're going up in ones. There we go. We want the first 3 numbers inside first and the second 3 numbers inside second and so on and the last in third. So what we can do, this is going to go from 0 all the way till 9 as you can see here. So if it's between 0 and 2 we want it to start in first, if it's between 3 and 5 it goes second, and if anything that's greater than or equal to 6 it can be stored in third. So we can say if I is greater than or equal to 0 and so we want a range here. And we can say if I is between 0 and then 2 in this case, we can assign first 2 plus equals numbers square bracket I. The reason why it's plus equals, we don't want to keep it as equals, otherwise it'll override the number. 1 will get stored and then 2 will override the 1. So we want to keep it as plus equals so it can keep appending it. So it'll go around the for loop and do 1, then it'll store 2, then it'll store 3, etc. And then we can have an else if I is greater than or equal to 3, and I is less than or equal to 5. And then for this one, we can store the second plus equals numbers I, and last we can do else if I is greater than or equal to 6, and we can store that in third plus equals numbers I. There we go. Hopefully that will store 4, 5, 6 inside here, and then finally 7, 8, 9, 0 inside here. And our return should be exactly the same. Let's give it a shot. And there you go, our tests pass as well. Perfect. So let's take this approach and see what else we can do with it. So if we comment out this for loop, what we can do is actually make another little set just underneath, and we'll keep these separate just so you can see all the outputs. So we can say string output equals and then open bracket just so we can set it up with the first one because it starts with an open bracket. And what we can do is write another for loop and we'll see how this one operates. So we're still going from I0 to numbers.length and we can do I++. There we go. And inside here, what we want to do is always add the number, but then we want to work out what position we're at. And then what we can do from there is actually put in the brackets, the spaces, and the takeaway sign. So what we can do is we can say output plus equals numbers square bracket I, because we always want to add the number onto the string no matter what. But if we're at position 2 or we're at position 5, what we can do at that point is actually add the bracket and the space and then also add the hyphen. So we can say if I is equal to 2, then we actually want to output, we want to append bracket plus a space. We started with the open bracket, and then once we've passed this character, then we put the close bracket and also the space. And then the only one left to do now is also the hyphen before we get to the end. So we can say else if I is equal to 5. And the reason why it's 2 and 5 is you can just count along. This is going to be the second number, but of course, because I is equal to 2 and we're starting at 0, it's actually going to be the third number. So if we're starting to print the third number, then we're going to print the third number, add it to our output, and then place the bracket and the space straight after it. So it's going to look like this. It's going to start with the open bracket, then it's going to print out the 1, then it's going to print out the 2, then it's going to print out the 3 on this line. And once it becomes 2, it's going to be printing the third number, and then we add the bracket followed by the space, and then it loops around again. We enter the fourth number, fifth number, and then sixth number, and because 6 is going to be position 5, we then output the hyphen, and then we can do the rest of the numbers because it won't meet any of these conditions. So what we can do here is say output plus equals, and then simply just add a hyphen. There we go. So after this for loop finishes, we should have the entire string straight inside here. So just at the end of the for loop, what we can do is just put return output, since the output is already ready for us. Let's try and run that. There you go. We're getting some warnings because our first, second, and third variables are still here, so we can just comment them out. And if we rerun that, and there you go, all of our tests pass. Now let's have a look at using the parse function and also the join functions. So let's block comment this out again. And we'll comment out this variable so you have a blank code. And then we can have some very, very quick one-line operations that does this entire function in one line. So let's break this down. We can have return, then we can have a long.parse function, and what this will try and do is it'll parse what we give it, and then we can convert it using this fancy toString function. We're trying to convert all these array positions stuck together as if they didn't have the commas there, and then pass it into a long variable, store that, and then convert it into this string. So we can pass string.concat and then place the numbers inside there. So what this line will actually do is take this, remove all the commas essentially, so this is just one big number, and then pass it inside a long. So let's actually break this down into steps. We can say long number equals this. And once we've passed it inside the long number, we can take this number and say string output equals, and then we want to use this toString function. We can say number.toString, and then we can place our format straight inside the brackets, and it should convert it for us. So what you can do is actually put zeros inside here, and zeros tells this function that we want to place a number inside these variables. So it will take the numbers that are inside this long variable and place them inside here as much as it possibly can. And at the end, we could just say return output, and let's give that a test. And as you can see, it is indeed passed. So what we can do is we can actually output to the console each of these steps just to show you how it works. System.console.writeLine, and then we can say number, and let's copy this line. Just underneath, we can output the output. And let's do test. And you should be able to see it on the left over here. There you go. We get all the numbers stuck together without the commas, just as you have here, but it's being passed inside a long variable, and then we're printing that variable out to the screen. And then once we take that long variable which contains this, we can actually use a toString function, and it'll put all these numbers where all the zeros are. As you can see, they've just been merged into the format. Perfect. So what you can actually do as well is merge these all onto one line. So we can take this long.parse, place that inside here, then after we've done the long.parse, we can just append the toString right at the end, just like that, and then we don't need the other variables, so you can just keep it on one simple line. Let's test to make sure that still works, and there you go. Let's have a look at another approach. We can use the string.join function, which will be able to join them all separately for us. So we can join them using blank spaces, so then we just have them all as one output string. So let me show you, console.writeLine, and if we take this and we say string.join, and then our first parameter is going to be nothing, because we want to join them all together with no gaps in between, and then comma, and we're going to have our array. And then let's just return a blank statement, just so the compiler will actually run it and we don't get an error, just so I can show you the result. Now of course it's going to fail, but don't worry about that. So as you can see there, we've joined all the variables together, just like this string.concat method did, but we're using this string.join now instead, and basically we're going to be joining it with nothing. If we do put a $sign there, for example, then you should be able to see a $sign appear before every single number. There you go. But of course, we want to just stick them all together, so we want to keep it like that. And since we've got it all in one line, we can use the insert function, and what we can do from there is we can say we want to insert something at a very specific position. So in this instance, we're saying insert the hyphen at position 6. So let's give that a shot. So we can store this return variable. We can say output. We store that inside the output. And then what we want to do is we're actually having a look over here. We're in position 0, then this position, then this position. We want to be able to do some sort of calculation to insert our own values inside there. So right now we're getting returned with this. So what we want to do is actually work from right to left. We want to insert the hyphen, then insert the bracket followed by the space, and then the open bracket. If we do it the other way, then it's going to move all the positions over. If this is in position 0 and we insert something before it, then this is now going to be in position 1. Let me demonstrate. If you have a string that just has one character, then this is going to be index 0. Now if you make it bracket 1, then this is going to be index 1 now. So if you work from top down, it's not going to affect the indexes. So what I mean by that is, if you have a 1, then that's going to be index position 0. And then if you insert 1 followed by a bracket after it, then the 1 hasn't changed position, it's still going to be at index 0, whereas in this case it's going to index 1. So what we're going to do is take our string just like we've got here, and then go back 6 places and insert the minus. Now as you can see, this side hasn't changed. We can insert the bracket space, and then at start we can insert the bracket. So how do we actually do this? So let's remove these and let's have a little think. So we need to count how many spaces we need to go. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the hyphen gets inserted there, and then go back to the start, and then we go 1, 2, 3, and then the bracket space is there, and then position 1 is just going to be 0, so it's just going to be like that. So that was 6 for the hyphen, 3 for the bracket space, and then we can do 0 for the open bracket. So let's see how we can actually build this in. So we can comment this bit out, and we can say output.insert, and we want to insert it from right to left, so we want to start with the 6. The first parameter is the position we want to insert it in, followed by the value you want to insert. And instead of doing these on separate lines just like so, you can actually chain them. So let's remove that, bring it back a line, and then we can just say .insert, and then we do 3, close bracket space, and then insert, 0, and then a simple open bracket. Remember, we're doing it backwards because if we insert the first bracket, then that's going to mess up the rest. Now, of course, we can just do our calculations differently and just add 1 to one of these, but you don't want to overcomplicate it. If you insert it backwards, this one, then this one, then this one, then these indexes won't change, and it's better that way. Now, instead of returning nothing, we can actually just return the output here, and let's hit test. Now, of course, if you actually remember from the tutorial series, we can't actually just do this on its own. The insert will actually return back a new instance. So in this case, we'd have to say output equals output.insert, etc. So let's test it now. And there you go, it's all working okay. In order to avoid this, you can actually just place it all in one line. As soon as the string.join comes back, you can actually take all of this and just place it right at the end, and you'll actually have the output straight on one line. There you go. Now, of course, you could just take this entire thing, get rid of our string output, and just place it straight in the return. Hit test, and there you go, everything seems to be working okay. What we can do ourselves is we can actually add some more test cases. So if we just duplicate this line, we can actually just change them all to 9s, and let's see what happens. So we can just do 9 commas, and then here we have 999, followed by 999 hyphen 9999. And that'll run our additional test. So let's hit test. Perfect, and you see another one has appeared there, and it all seems to have passed. So just to have a little recap, what we can do is we can type out manually, but this is really bad because we're just using fixed values. So it's really good to be able to use ranges inside our for loop from 0 to 2, 3 to 5, and 6 onwards in order to be able to construct these, but instead of doing it manually, we do it inside a for loop, so the format and the structure is a lot better. And in the future, if this were to change the 3 numbers, then you simply just have to change this one value and then increment the rest by 1, instead of having to duplicate this and so on and so forth. It's quicker and easier if you do it in the for loop, and it's a bit more apparent to what these numbers actually mean. It dictates us 3 distinct ranges here. We then moved on to doing it a different way using a for loop. We can start with the open bracket, and once we hit position 2 and position 5, we can insert the open bracket followed by a space, and then insert the takeaway sign just to be able to complete the format. And then we moved on to some one-liners. We can pass the long input, and what that will do using the string concat function is it will remove all the commas inside here and just place it as one big number inside our long. And then what we can do with our long is actually convert it using the toString function, but by passing in a very specific format. And what this format will do is it will take all the numbers inside the long number variable and place it all inside zeros. Please make sure that you do place zeros, because that's what the function will pick up on when it's inserting the values inside the format. And then we can just do it all in one line if you want it to look a little bit neater, or if you want the structure, you can separate out the variables. And also in this example, use the string.join, which is exactly the same as using string.concat, except you have another parameter. String.concat is a little bit better in this case, but I wanted to show you can use join as well. Join is actually used more commonly when you're placing in values before and after the numbers, whereas in this case we just want to join them all with a blank space, so it's actually better to use string.concat. And then from there we can insert at position 6 the takeaway sign, at position 3 the close bracket followed by the space, and the position 0 it's going to be the open bracket. Like I said before, if you actually insert it forwards, insert the open bracket, then what you're going to have to do is this is now going to be at position 4, and then this is going to be at position 7. So it doesn't matter which way you do it, but when you do count, you're going to have to add 1. Because here you're going to say position 0, and then when you go to add the bracket, it's now going to be at position 4, and then when you add the hyphen, it's going to be at position 7. So it's going to differ to when you actually count. So if you insert the bracket first, then it's actually going to change the indexes of the ones that you've previously counted, so it's best to insert it back to front, because then the indexes at the start of the string won't really be affected. If you insert something here, these variables still hasn't changed. If you insert something at the end of the string, as you can see, all of these indexes won't exactly change. But if you insert something right at the start, then now you've shifted all the indexes up by 1. And that's exactly why I inserted them in backwards, because it won't shift the indexes at the start of the string, so when we're doing the 3 and the 0, they don't have to change. So if you want to see me solve any specific Code Wars programs, then please put them in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one. This video was made possible by my awesome Patreons DP Unique, Tominator and Buddy Woody 9. Thank you for your continued support. I have a C# Masterclass Udemy course coming up soon. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and join the Discord server for exclusive discounts and promotions.